Action Comics number 13, written by Grant Morrison, art by Travel Foreman. This is a Halloween special, quote unquote. We open up on Krypton 20 years before its destruction, and basically it is the first time that they use the Phantom Zone. There was a criminal named Zadu who did some crazy forbidden experiments with suspended animation and apparently unleashed a horror called the Living Death on Krypton. And so the entire council's like, yeah, no, we would put you in like suspended animation as we have our other horrible criminals, but you've literally made us not want to do that with your horrible crimes. So we've made something new. And Jor-El steps up, has the Phantom Zone projection, and throws him in there. And he's, of course, freaking out. He's like, I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. I can't feel anything. I'm just stuck with my thoughts for 20 years. So as it turns out that 20 years later was literally the day that Krypton exploded. He was supposed to come out for parole, and he didn't, because Krypton exploded. So at this point, Superman's got all the Kryptonian tech that, like, was gathered in, I think it was Brainiac's ship, and he gets an alert, like, oh, we've got some crazy tsunamis out in the Pacific, like, something crazy's going on out there. Superman, we need your help. And he's like, I'm on my way. But as he's leaving, he hears something. And he looks around and he doesn't see anything immediately. He's like, what in the... I know I just heard something. And as he makes his way over to this giant mirror-looking thing, he sees this fiery hellscape figure. Like, one part Ragman, one part Hellraiser. So he sees that and then he freaks out for a second. He's like, wait a minute, what the... I know I saw something there. Oh, well, whatever. And he starts to leave. But he makes his way over to the Phantom Zone projector, and he looks inside of it, and he can see that there's this giant crack on the screen, but he also sees paw prints inside, and he's like, what in the heck? What's going on? Wait, there's something behind me. And as he turns around, he sees Zadu is the fiery hellscape figure, and he pushes the Phantom Zone projection button and sends Superman into the Phantom Zone. And immediately he's met with all, people just naming themselves off like, I am Ursa, I am Jaxur, Vac Ox, Akavar, Raskram. But then there's one voice that rings out just saying, kneel before me, kneel before. And he's like, oh crap, I'm in the Phantom Zone. So Zadu walks around, and he's like, oh my god, I'm out, this is fantastic. And all the like voices from the Phantom Zone are still calling him, and he's like, oh yeah, I said I would save you, wouldn't I? Oops. So then he walks past the bottle city of Kandor, and Kandor's like, he's like, oh, hey, Kandor, you're suspended animation. That's my deal. I'm going to take your technology and use it to torture you. That's going to be great. But first, I want to go out and experience the world a little bit. So he sees all like the news stuff that Superman uses in the Fortress to keep up. And he's like, okay, all right, I'm seeing a whole world out there. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty frail. I think I could break it. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. But then he sees a statue of Jor-El in the fortress, and he just melts it with his heat vision. He's like, Zadu's alive, baby. So back in the Phantom Zone, he's being attacked by all these spirits, and he's like, okay, all right, I can't see, feel, or hear anything, but I know I'm being attacked. I got to focus on like a memory of something. And he remembers... Crypto. He remembers his dog from when he was just a itty-bitty little baby, which I think was an earlier story in this. And he lets out a whistle, and Crypto shows up and starts attacking all the Phantoms that are attacking him. And he gets goggles off of one of the Phantoms, which allows him to see the Phantom Zone, which I don't get how that's a thing at all. But regardless, he does. And he sees Crypto attacking one of the guys, and he's like, oh, hey, there's a dude literally being crucified over there. I'm going to go get him down. So he takes him down. The guy's like, oh, I'm just a stranger in this Phantom Zone. A phantom stranger, if you will. And yes, it is him. So then Phantom Stranger talks to him and says, like, yeah, no, here's the thing. Phantom Zone, everyone's trapped here. However, there is a way to get out, but it's only good enough. Like, you're the only one who could possibly do it. And also, only you are allowed out. And he's like, okay, all right, I guess we could do that, but I also really want to take my dog. My dog is here. And Phantom Stranger's like, no, you can't take your... Did you not listen to me? You alone are able to leave. And he's like, okay, but I am definitely going to take my dog. I promise that. And so Phantom Stranger gets like his cloak and his hat back on. He's like, yeah, no, I got my own stuff going on. Don't worry about me. But you have to go and protect the world, Superman. Like, you're needed out there. So Xadu starts to leave the fortress. And then all of a sudden, he's pulled back by this, like, irresistible force. Like, he's literally, you see his cape dragging behind him or in front of him because he's being yanked back in. And we see that it's a Phantom Zone, like a phantom version of Clark. And he's literally ripping this. The hellscape looking thing was actually an ectosuit that allowed him to live in the real world, at least temporarily. So now Clark puts it on so that he's able to interact just long enough to activate the Phantom Zone projector and let himself back out, like his physical body back out. Phantom Stranger's fighting off all the other spirits who are somehow interacting with the real world as well. I don't get that part. But he presses the button and he gets out. And he looks back through the projector and he sees Krypto just sitting there waiting. And he's like, gotta get my dog. So he uses the cybernetic arm that came with the suit in order to reach through the Phantom Zone projector and yank out Krypto's physical form. And as he gets him out, he's like, oh, Krypto ain't doing so hot. Like, he's freezing cold. So he very quickly bundles him up and takes him out into deep space, pretty much right where the sun is shining the hardest. And Krypto, boom, back to life. And, he licks Superman's face and he's like, oh, who's the best dog in the universe? You are. So that's basically the story. But then we get one little epilogue page of the little impish guy who's been appearing in this entire series. He shows up and he is looking into the Phantom Zone, and he goes up to Xadu and he's like, hey, you want out of here? You want revenge? I got your ticket. Let's go. Yeah, that's still happening. Any story of Krypto being saved, like, mwah. I love that. That was fantastic. Travel Foreman's art, I originally saw him on Animal Man. I really did like his style. I think if they were going for more of like a horrifying setting, it works here, but it's definitely a lot more reserved than it was in Animal Man. A lot more just normal. I don't want to say house style because it's not, but it's like there were some truly grotesque things in Animal Man, whereas this one, he's playing it a bit safer in terms of how people are represented. Definitely stylized, though. So I like the art. I like the story. Overall, it's good. It does feel a little bit like but honestly, that's Grant Morrison, honestly, where he just shows up and he's like, hey, I got this one story real quick. Doesn't really tie into much of anything. But it's a heartfelt, sort of interesting take on things. I don't understand why Phantom Stranger's here, because we literally have gotten issue 1 of his series, and he was not in the Phantom Zone. He was not being crucified. I don't get why he's there, but hey, whatever. So overall, this issue's probably it's a 7. I want to give it 7.5, but I can't justify it. So it's a 7. It is very good, and I think that we are getting to the actual plot that involves that little impish guy who's going around collecting Superman villains. So can't wait to see how that evolves into.